I'm Doc Issues from Capes on the Couch, a show that examines the mental health issues of comic book characters, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other amazing geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And welcome to Play Comics, where once again we're looking at a video game based on a comic property and how well it represents that source material. And today we're just taking advantage of the fact that it's April, because April Fool's Day is going to be all month long, and we're looking at some things that normally wouldn't be covered, but they're close enough, and I don't care. And today, I think that is solving a big problem that we have had over here in the US. Out of all the problems you can think of that might be, this is definitely more important than those. It is the most important problem ever in the history of the entire cultural everything of the United States. We never got a proper Sailor Moon game. And how do I solve that? Of course, I go out and I get Cass from Distant Echoes, which is not a Sailor Moon podcast, but it is in space. So close enough for me. Cass, how are you today?
I'm great, and I'm so happy to be here to help you on this arduous journey of finding the solution to all of our problems. I agree. I think Sailor Moon is the answer to everything. So even though that's not my own podcast, I agree with you because I love it enough.
What was it that got you into Sailor Moon in the first place?
Oh my gosh. So I can attribute all of my love and passion for Sailor Moon, because I have a lot of it, to my aunt, Liz. When I was a kid, my complete obsession for, and love of Japanese culture came from her. And I wasn't ever really a big anime person, but she had tons of Sailor Moon VHSs and manga, and she had some of the other kind of very girly romance based, which is not me at all. But for some reason, I loved it. I love the fact that all of these girls had these amazing transformation sequences. I love that they each represented a different planet. And I just loved their awesome outfits and everything. I mean, their nails got painted in the middle of the transformation. It was so freaking cool. So I can very easily say it was my Aunt Liz. And ever since then, I've always loved Sailor Moon. I have a Sailor Moon shirt on now, which no one can see but you, but I also have a Sailor Mars tattoo. I've got my socks on. One's Luna, one's Artemis, the cats. I've just always gravitated back to Sailor Moon. There's just something so nostalgic and comfortable about it to me. My partner Tommy, his kind of thing was Dragon Ball Z, and I feel like I have that same thing with Sailor Moon. Yeah, I just love it so much, and it's never stopped. My whole room is outfitted with Sailor Moon stuff, so I'm still in it, man, and I always will be.
I have gone on little stretches of I'll watch it and then I get caught up in something and then I don't remember what was going on, so I'll start over, and I never stop liking it while I watch it. And let's get one thing straight right now with it. I have no idea which English version I'm watching when I watch it. So it could have been any of them, and I have no idea if what I was watching was any good. But that's one of the things I think that just really fascinates me about all of this, is that, more so than anything else, whichever version you're watching actually seems to matter.
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge debate. Actually, I literally just the other day, Tommy and I were in a record store, we love this local record store called Wax Moon, and they have all these great like copies of and VHSs of a whole bunch of shows from our childhood. And I overheard some people looking at Sailor Moon and they were like, "Oh my God, this is probably the original dub." And then one of their friends was like, "No, we do not talk about the original dub." They were like, "The new dub is better." And there are very good reasons why that is. And I'm kind of in the camp of liking the newer dub, to be quite honest, for reasons that, there was some interesting things happening in the 90s around this around this show, and with like romantic relationships, showing like females being in a relationship together or males being in a relationship together. And strangely enough, it was actually it was just actually okay for it to be gay, I feel like, in some of the original, whereas when you first get the translation over, for example, you probably already know this about Neptune and Uranus, I would assume.
I probably couldn't have told you which ones.
Okay.
But the basic idea, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that they were, they definitely were two girls that loved each other originally. And yet in the original translation, when it came over to us, they became cousins. But they didn't really change anything else. So it just became weirder that they were cousins and not just a couple. It's like, why? Why is this? You're making it weird. So they kind of revamped that in the newer show. Sailor Moon, I believe it's Crystal is what it's called. And I've watched all of it. You got me after playing the game that we're going to talk about. I rewatched all of Sailor Moon Crystal. I actually ended up finishing the last season of the original Sailor Moon show and realized that I never finished watching it, which is a travesty.
Did you not finish it, or did you never have the opportunity to finish it because you kept catching it on places that didn't have the end?
That's exactly what it was, to be honest. And if that's not the case, like, that's what I'm going to say, because otherwise I'd be ashamed. But I truly think you're right.
Nobody can prove you wrong anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I do think that's what it was, because I've watched so much of it over and over again just for comfort, right? Like, I'll just have it on the background. I know what's going on. And it just occurred to me while I was watching, like, it's Sailor Moon R, I think it's the very last one. And I was getting to a point where I was like, wait, who is this? I don't know who this is. What is happening? And Tommy, my partner, my podcast co-host, hears me from the other room and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I just realized I never finished watching Sailor Moon." And now I'm 36 years old and I'm finally finishing it. So thank you, because you got me to finish it finally.
Yay, I did at least one positive thing this week. One of the things that's always fascinated me about this too is that with Sailor Moon, you have a show that is, all right, cool. You have these outer space superheroes going out, fighting evil, going against monsters, going against evil witches, like everything you could possibly ever want, except they're girls. So it's horrible. And I couldn't watch that growing up because it's for girls.
Of course. Were you a Dragon Ball Z person then? I feel like there's sometimes two camps,
Well, see, that's at least you've taken, like, here's your show that you have time for and you don't have time for everything. And I can understand that. I was more of I'm doing sports all year long person. So I just didn't have after school.
See, I never had that problem. So I didn't have a life. So watching Sailor Moon was what engrossed me. And obviously, like, again, like, I've never been like a feminine person, really. I've never really like felt tapped into that part of myself, but like there was something but I love fashion. I love these kind of like supposedly like traditionally femme things. And so what I love the most about Sailor Moon was that there was a senshi, or one of those characters for every type of person. There's not just like the inner, they're called like the inner senshi, which are like, your Sailor Moon, obviously, but also like your Mercury and Mars, or like your OG 4 girls that show up. But then you have your outer senshi. So you have like your Pluto, your Saturn. You kind of like go a little bit farther out into the galaxy. And then you go even farther out of that and you get like Sailor Stars, which are the coolest Sailor Scouts, which were not sadly in the game. But they're pop stars that are actually boys when they're on the planet, but then they turn into girls when they transform, which is so cool. and just like a, gender spiral, which is so neat. So I feel like at some point there's a Sailor Moon character for everybody if you really look hard enough.
I pick Luna the cat.
She's a good one. She's great. Do you really like Luna?
It's a cute little black cat who does cool things. I mean, what is there not to like?
It is true. And not to spoil Sailor Moon for you, because I want you to watch more of it, but she does turn into a human at one point. So
yes. I'm going to go back and watch it no matter what you tell me right now.
Good. I do it at least once, like every other year. Like it's one of those things that I constantly have on in the background. I would like to say that, to practice my Japanese, I put it in the original language, but I'm so used to the dub because that's what came on TV for me, like I'm used to those voice actors. So, and they're great. I mean, Usagi sounds insane in English. She just has this high pitched, like crazy voice. She's crying all the time. And I think that's something else I connected with as a kid because I was quite a crybaby. I'm very emotional. And so it was just really cool to have a central superhero that was also kind of nuts, that everyone around her was like, you cry too much, you eat too much, you sleep too much. Like, why are you such a brat? Like, that was just so fun.
Do you know how cool it is though, having a superhero that is like an actual human?
Yes.
It's the Spider-Man thing too. You have somebody who's dealing with normal things that you're having to deal with, but then they still get to go be a superhero. That's just great.
Exactly. And and they're good at being a superhero too. Like Usagi is the reason that everyone else is alive. Like she becomes the princess. Like she becomes the queen of her planet. Like she somehow gets it together when she's in the future. And is able to, it's still like those qualities though that make her who she is. Like the fact that she loves her friends so much, the fact that she cares about them, the fact that she is human is like intrinsic to her character. And I think that's the reason that she is such a likable, even if she is really annoying sometimes. We're all annoying little brats sometimes too. So that's why we love her.
I'm excited to go back and watch this. We were watching a bunch of like Sailor Moon history things for me to just kind of cram during dinner, make sure I was ready. And just knowing that there's 12 different dubs and failed live action series and different live action series that actually did happen and reboots and everything. I mean, this is going to be fun for me.
Good.
How did we never get a game over here?
I know. And I honestly didn't know that until you said something. But I knew it in my heart because I never played a Sailor Moon game. And so that's, I should have sought it out because I'm a gamer. I mean, that's what I do every other day. Like I've been playing video games since I was a kid. Final Fantasy, talk about like a series that became huge over here. I've played every single one of those. That is one of my like staples. Like I have a Buster Sword tattoo. Like I love that series. And so the fact that like two of my favorite things, like a JRPG and Sailor Moon never came together for me as a kid, I think that's why, if I'm allowed to go ahead and I guess introduce the name of the game that we played today, which it has a really long name actually that I keep forgetting. And can you remind me? It's Another Story. That's what this.
I want to lead this off with the fact that my Japanese is very, very, very bad.
It's okay.
It Shouju Senshi Sailor Moon Another Story.
Exactly. It's long. And it works though, because I discovered while playing it that there are characters in this that don't appear in any other Sailor Moon media. And so that was very exciting for me because a lot of the characters that I grew up with came back. A lot of them get revived from the dead, essentially, which is really cool. But then there are also brand new characters in it, which I thought was just, again, it was just like having an entire new Sailor Moon series to play. Like this game could have very easily been a Sailor Moon TV show series. Easily.
Well, on that note, we're going to try to figure out where Sokka is in all of this. Well, I dropped some promos for a few other shows.
Howdy y'all, my name is Dave, and I would like to welcome you to the Anime Field Guide, the monthly podcast where I review anime with friends and fellow fans, as well as talk about the fine folks who make it all possible. I also discuss the history of anime production houses across Japan. If I have your interest, you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the major platforms. Follow my links through Linktree, linktr.ee/ANI Field Guide. I hope to see you there.
At To the Batpoles podcast, we look at the many sides of our favorite hero, Batman. For example, Encyclopedia Batman.
It's the basic formula for escaping from the Siamese human knot. I just recalled it.
Civic Responsibility Batman.
Only a criminal would disguise himself as a licensed bonded guard, yet callously park in front of a fire hydrant.
Impish Humor Batman.
Look at him, Robin. That crooked bird's going crazy.
And more. See if you can identify other sides of the Caped Crusader, and then join us at To the Batpoles podcast, available wherever podcasts are found or at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com. Batman has many sides, but can we trust him to save the day?
You can be sure if it's Batman.
So, Cass, like we already said, we're looking today at Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, another story, because I'm not going to try to say Japanese again.
You did fine.
I did close enough, but my tongue does not work that way. This one came out in September of 1995 for the Super Famicom. It's really hard for me to not say Super Nintendo, but it didn't come out for the Super Nintendo, except it kind of did because it got into some places in Europe, if I remember right. Developed and published by Angel. What we have here is a Sailor Moon RPG because we decided if we're going to look at a Sailor Moon game, go big or go home.
I absolutely agree. I mean, like, you got to have it. I mean, it's quintessential, I feel like, for Sailor Moon. And I did not know that's what I was getting into when I booted this up. I was so happily surprised because, again, I grew up playing JRPGs. I've played all the original Final Fantasy games. Like, I haven't played one of these in a very long time. They don't translate very well. Certainly now in modern era, any other RPG you play now, you just can't grind that long without getting extremely bored. You just gotta like spice it up and make it a little bit different. And I will say that is one thing. I cheated a little and I had a speed up grind cheat on the console that I played on, because otherwise, and I will say even with it, I feel like I was still grinding a lot. And I don't know about you, but I died a lot.
It's the joy of Super Nintendo RPGs and, PlayStation ones as well. That's just what you need to do. Mm-hmm. But we powered through this one because, like you said, this really is just cool. Could have been other episodes of the show. It takes place after the third season, if I remember right. But, decently into the show. I mean, you can't argue about that part of it. So it's dropping you in there to a point where it's expecting you to know who people are and expecting you to know what's going on. So I was at a bit of a loss with it. That's one reason why I'm going to go back and watch some of the show so I can go back and play this again. Because even without really knowing everything that I felt like I should have known, this was still fun to play. And it's like, it wasn't so obtuse that I couldn't figure things out. It was just like, all right, cool. I'm definitely missing something here, but I'll get it figured out.
I love that. I was wondering that too. I didn't know what your experience with Sailor Moon was. So when I first started playing it, that was like one of the first questions I had was like, is Chris going to know that this little girl is like Sailor Moon, this 14-year-old's daughter from the future? Because that is a very big prominent thing that happens in the show. And in the game, you're just thrown into it. It's just like, hey, this is my mommy from the future. And I'm just thinking of people who just pick up this game off the street and are like, excuse me, what is happening? But other than that, even getting past that, it's just so fun. The music is incredible. I loved the soundtrack to this game. It gets me into that. There's this vibe that I'm into right now that I think is very much educated from the fact that I loved Sailor Moon as a kid, which is like, like the vaporwave Japanese, like retro. Like I've been listening to a lot of like 90s, like Japanese city pop. Like it's just it just hits such a good, like I just love like, sorry, this is really random, but last year we went to this Airbnb on the beach and all of our friends were like, we got to get a jacuzzi for the beach. We all get into the little, like our little hot tub out on the beach. And I just pop in some like 90s Japanese, like city pop. It's like what you probably would hear, like if you're like shopping at a 7-Eleven. in Japan. And that is the feeling I get from this game. And so it was so cozy. I don't know. I'll have to share the picture with you. But Tommy, I have a picture of me from a few weeks ago that I actually shared with my Aunt Liz, who got me into Sailor Moon, of me playing the game. And then also I had Sailor Moon on in the background while I was playing the game. So it was just like such a nice comfort blanket. It was great.
The other thing I really like about this one is it's not like a super difficult RPG. I mean, yeah, there's the fighting. You have to get your grinding in. You have to make sure you're the right levels, set people at the right forward, back, or middle spot when you're doing your battles. But as far as the what are you supposed to do next aspect of an RPG, that part's pretty straightforward. I look at it and it's like, all right, cool. I don't want to sit there and play this for 40 hours, put all that time into it, but it's great for where I am in life right now. And, okay, maybe I can't play for 3 or 4 days. I'm not going to forget what I'm doing.
That's such a good point, because I feel like that's something like what people like hit, I think, at this point. If you've been a gamer since you were a kid and now you're in this time of life where like you have all these other things going on, sometimes it's difficult to invest yourself completely in a game that has like a thought-provoking story and very difficult combat. I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, I recently got to the end of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which has all of those things. And my friend is like dying for me to get to the end of it. He keeps texting me like every other day. And he's like, have you finished it yet? Have you finished it yet? And the answer is no, because I have to be in the right brain set to do that, right? This is not a game that I can like watch something else while I play and like just let my mind go off. And at this age of my life, like, yeah, I can still like invest myself in stuff like that. But after work, after other things going on, sometimes it's just nice to have something a little more mindless, like a little bit of grinding, like in Sailor Moon, like, and just hitting the same button. Maybe I'm hitting the same buttons over and over, but I don't care. Like, and I love hearing their little tiny voices, like actually say their like fighting moves, which are completely like actually the same fighting moves they have in the show. Like, I know all of their fighting moves. Like, that was just so cool. I will say too, even though you mentioned the combat not being too difficult, at least to get used to, the positioning was actually really, really, really creative and cool. I feel like for a game of that time, like, I don't feel like I saw that as much, like in terms of like positioning the Sailor Scouts in a certain way on the battlefield, but maybe I'm just not as familiar with other games that did that. Was that something that stood out for you too, or was that just me?
No, that definitely stood out for me. I mean, the closest I've seen is like the full on 3D, even if it's an isometric 3D type deal where you can go all around everywhere and you don't have everybody on their half of the field. I mean, normally with these JRPGs, I'm used to, if it counts for anything at all, you're in the front or the back. That's it. The fact that Sailor Moon even introduced you're in the middle here just really changes things up. And having it matter as much as it did really changes things up.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, I'll admit, I had to look up a little bit of like a walkthrough for this because I was just not prepared for how much I was going to die from some of these bosses. And I was playing it more as like a OG, like Sailor Moon just lover being like, okay, well, yeah, like Sailor Moon's going to be in the middle. And then, Uranus is going to be in the front because blah, blah, blah. And I'm just making up a story based on the personality of the character. But that's not entirely what was going on here. There was like a lot of strategy, and then the accessories that you had to add to them, which they have all the accessories they have in the show. And I felt like I had a little bit of a one-up on people who might not be as familiar with the show just because I could match exactly what character needed what. But yeah, if you're not familiar with that, or if this is something totally new to you, like, it's actually pretty strategic for even the fact that it is a little bit more grindy. There was a lot of strategy involved. Or at least I had to like look up, like I said, I looked up a guide where someone was helping me be like, okay, you need to put Saturn here and you need to make sure this person is right here. And there were some bosses where I had to look into it because I was just like, I'm missing something clearly because I've died like 12 times. What is happening? Kind of wild.
And when I say the combat wasn't difficult, I mean, yeah, you're strategy wise, you're going to have to figure out how to beat him and everything. But like, mechanic wise how to do things. So I mean, don't
Yeah.
go in here thinking this is going to be Final Fantasy Mystic Quest or anything.
That's true. I also, you were saying a few minutes ago about like getting more like 3D. I really had I had another like big wave of nostalgia moment when I like opened up the world map for the very first time in a Final Fantasy game. And it completely blew me out of the water when you get to a moment in this game where you have, Sailor Venus has her like spaceship that you go up into. And lo and behold, you're on a freaking world map and you're flying around on a spaceship and you can land anywhere you want. That was wild to me. Like, I had no idea that this game was going to offer so much and like remind me of so many things that I used to love as a kid. I was like completely flabbergasted by that.
This game screams to me like it is the second or third in a series because it seems to have everything so figured out, and it's not. And that surprises the heck out of me.
Yes, that was also just very confusing. I was like, I don't know. I don't even think it showed me how to navigate the ship. I don't know if it told me where I needed to go specifically. Like, I had to look some stuff up because I was like, I know it's vaguely happening in the story, but it's like, I can go anywhere I want. And then I was just cracking up at the fact that, in perfect Sailor Moon fashion, they spread out all the girls. You get to be like one specific girl for each little area. And I just thought it was the idea of like one of the Sailor Scouts just being like in Switzerland or like in this other continent. Tommy was like, are they in America? I was like, no, they're not going to America.
Good for them.
Yeah, I know. Don't come here. Top of the episode, you already said we have plenty of problems. I don't know. Sailor Moon might be the one to solve them, but there's too much going on in Crystal Tokyo right now that she has to deal with. So I just thought that was so funny. And the fact that every single like side story with Mars and with Mercury and Venus, there's like a boy that they end up falling in love with immediately. That's like, aren't you going to stay here and live with me forever? And they're like, no, I got to go do cool stuff. Bye. And they just like, that is like quintessential Sailor Moon, weird, like little, like, teeny bopper, like crush story that like I otherwise would not care about, but I just think it's so goofy and it's so important to I just feel like this game really does feel like a Sailor Moon vibe in general, though.
Normally, when we're doing these episodes, we're looking at this one game and that's it. But this being a special episode, I feel like we could do some special little diversions. Like, have you actually played any other Sailor Moon games?
I have. And I don't know the name of it, but I'm sure we can find it. But actually, the sister store to Wax Moon, the record store I mentioned earlier, they have Dawnstar Games, and they have a Japanese arcade. And you go in, and there's like tons of Japanese arcade cabinets. Most of them are dancing games, like rhythm games, which I love. Like, I grew up playing DDR. Like, I was obsessed with DDR as a kid. But they have a side-scroller, like, fighter, like, Sailor Moon game. And I love that game. That is one game that I play every time I go in there. It's very, like, quintessential. Like, you pick which senshi you're going to be, you get all of her powers, and you just beat the crap out of all the other, like, bad guys that show up. And it's just a Sailor Moon arcade box. I'm looking it up to see if I can. Oh, it's just pretty soldier Sailor Moon. It's great. Again, you're just out there in the streets beating the crap out of people, and that one's a little hard too. But I'm not as good at arcade games, so especially not fighters. I always get my butt beat at games like that. So, but again, I still think it's fun. I feel like everyone has their Sailor Scout that they feel like close to, and that's who they want to play as. I will say with Baishoujo Sailor Senshi, another story, what I loved is that you get to play every single one of the main Sailor Senshi. And there's even Saturn and Pluto, who are they're just great. They're such great characters. And then as I got older, my two favorites became Uranus and Neptune. And I was just glad that they were like, involved as well. So I don't know I think it's just the main like 4 that are in that arcade cabinet though. But
if I remember right, yeah, because I was looking at some stuff about that one before I was kind of getting with you on which one we were going to look at here officially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kind of like you said earlier, I was also a bit surprised that there were no Sailor Moon games that came out over here. Way back in middle school, for me, 7th grade, I started getting into emulation. And in doing that, it was also, hey, let's get all these games that you're never going to find anywhere. They never came out over here, all that fun stuff. And I know for a fact that I had one of the Sailor Moon fighters, and I couldn't tell you which one it is at all, besides that it's a Super Nintendo one, but it's like one of the Street Fighter style fighters. And I would play that, and like, I just would have sworn until I was going through this list for everything, getting ready for the show, that there was a Sailor Moon game over here. Because if you've got something like that, as well put together as that one was, how do you not get that coming over here? Like,
Yeah.
Everybody's first anime over here was Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball of some kind, Pokemon, or Speed Racer.
Exactly. It's such a well-known franchise. You're so right. It really is an atrocity, and you're making me more mad as as we talk more about it. I'm like, something must be done, because you're right. Like, everything else got its heyday here, and everything else still has its heyday, and so does Sailor Moon. Like, Sailor Moon is still huge here. People love Sailor Moon. So the fact that like there isn't a well-known game, and thinking back on it, like, I'm glad you mentioned Street Fighter, but also like Sailor Moon is a very like tokusatsu-esque game where there's like these Power Ranger-esque characters. There's even an episode in the Sailor Moon R that I recently watched for the first time at the end. There's a whole episode where like the 3 Sailor Stars, the 3 girls that are like outer Sailor Scouts, they come, like I said, they come to the planet as like basically like idols, and they have like a tokusatsu show that they're on. And they perform in that show as like Power Rangers essentially. I played so many Power Ranger games growing up. Like, it's the same thing. It would have just been really cool to be able to like choose your like Sailor Scout and like their loadout, whatever that is, of their makeup palette or whatever it could be, and like just go and fight the bad guys. It has all the same like essential characteristics of all these other shows. So like, you're right. I don't think there's still time. We could still do this. We should do it now. I wanted to ask you, because you had just mentioned playing that on your emulator, like, did you get to choose a specific Sailor Scout? And if so, like, who did you pick? Like, was there anyone?
I couldn't tell you who I picked at all right now. I mean, I played as all of them, because when I have those games, I tend to go through and I'll play as all of them and try to figure everything out. And it's been a while since I played it now. And, especially back then, playing it on the keyboard like a caveman, it sucks with the Super Nintendo, because that controller just isn't made for that at all. But, I mean, I know there were multiples, depending on which game. I mean, they had to have at least 8 different characters in there, because it's a fighting game. That's just how those things work.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you can't recall that, what about with this game that we played specifically? Was there any specific Sailor Scout that you like specifically? Or were you just like, no, they're all the same?
I kind of know they're all the same, but not in the bored I don't care way. It's in the I don't know enough about them to have made a good decision kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Well, once you end up revisiting the show, you'll definitely have to tell me, because that's I think one of the most appealing things about the show is that every single character, every single Sailor Scout at least, has such a specific personality. Growing up, I, of course, was obsessed with Sailor Mars. I think it was mostly because her planet was Mars, and that was like my star sign. I'm born in March. I love the fact that she was like, her like side story is that she works at the temple with her grandfather. And what I really loved about the game that we played was that you get to see her ravens that she has. She's psychic. She sees the future. And I just always thought that was so cool. She's like the more like mystical of all of them. She's like the most witchy out of like the main like 4, and so I always thought that was interesting. And that's another thing I'm going back to with the game that we played, was just with another story. I feel like, yeah, they kind of do blend together, especially like in combat, and you don't really get to see as much of that personality as you do in the show. But there was a little bit, which I thought was really cool. And you saying you loved Luna, I also just love that randomly in the game, Luna just follows you everywhere pretty much. At least when you're Usagi, like she just suddenly is there all the time. When you're transitioning to another scene or like another chapter in the game, Luna's always there to ask if you want to save the game before you go forward, which is just a cute little thing to add, right?
Well, somebody has to watch out for Usagi because she's a giant doofus.
That is absolutely true. Yes. And it's got to be Luna because even the other girls can't keep it together with her. So that is true. And Luna is too one of my favorite characters. She's kind of like the guardian of the group. So I love that. And the save file was also like a diary, like a little diary entry. So again, it's this other it's this just cute little middle schooler type vibe to this like fighting the world, but we're still middle schoolers. Do not forget. Which I just thought was so funny.
You have a friend.
Yes, speaking of cats, my little goblin, who's more like Sailor Moon than Luna would be. Yeah, that's Polly. She's got one little eyeball. She just came to say hey. Probably heard me talking about cats.
Hi. Even though you didn't hear me say that.
She might have. I don't know. She's very perceptive. She's actually really funny. When I do watch Sailor Moon, or if I watch anything that has a cat on the TV, especially a cartoon cat for some reason, she loves it. She will get right up on the edge of the couch and stare. And our other cat, who's older, Gracie, who you might have seen, might have popped up in Tommy's stream, I don't know, when you were recording with him. Because the big girl likes to be in his room and the little one likes to be in mine. She is not interested in TV at all. She could care less. But this one was raised on an iPad. I call her iPad baby. Because when we had them separated when she was younger, I used to go in there and just like she would watch like Twitch streams with me on my iPad. So she's very used to electronics. So such a weirdo.
Well, as we start to wrap things up here, what are the highlights for this one about what it really gets right looking at Sailor Moon?
That's a good question. I think I keep going back to just the heart of it. I think the fact that the characters, even though their personalities don't come out as much as I would like them to, the entire idea of, one person I would say they do get really right is Sailor Moon herself. She's such a brat in this game too. She's constantly getting things wrong. She's constantly making a mess of herself. And she's not, even though she's like the main hero, you don't really play her as much at the end of the game. You get to play all the other senshi, and I feel like that's something that is like at the heart of Sailor Moon in general. Is like Sailor Moon or Usagi brings them all together and is always the one to bring them all together, just like at the end of the game. But you still get to see the other stories, and you still have to learn like the heartbeat and the quality of all the other characters to really get back to that point. And I think that's what I like the most about this game. And the music. The music was so good. I'll always go back to the music. I just thought it was great.
Wait, for me, I can't tell you who most of the enemies were for anything because I haven't seen enough of the show, but I recognize them from watching it, just Sailor Moon overarching things. So, they've got that in there. The character models for everybody looks as good as I would expect a Super Nintendo JRPG to look, because when they make these things, you're making a long game and you only have so much space on a Super Nintendo cart. You don't worry about making everything look super amazing. You make it look good enough. And they definitely went well past good enough. Everything looks pretty good. And from what little I've seen of the show, so I've probably seen the beginning arcs like 20,000 times as I restart to figure out what's going on again. Like this just feels like episodes that I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, that's what made me discover that I hadn't finished some of it, because there's this whole scenario happening in the game at some point with some of the villains, and if you'll notice that Usagi talks to them like she's dealt with them before, that she's fought them before, and some of them have turned good, and you're like, what's going on? You get confused kind of if you've never seen that part of the show. And it made me realize that I was actually missing the end of the last season. And I was like, dang, I need to go back. Like, I knew Beryl, I knew all these other like villains that we were fighting. And then you get farther along in the game and I'm like, I really am missing something here. But then there's, of course, like Apsu and some of the other characters, the Opposito Senshi that kind of look like Sailor Moon. There's like a character that looks like Sailor Moon. There's a character that looks like Sailor Mercury that you fight. Those are just from the game itself. And that's why I think it's like, as much as it like harkens back to all these, like you said, like the first 1 or 2 seasons of the show, there is potential for this to be its own like series too. And that would be really cool.
What do you think this one gets wrong looking at Sailor Moon? From my limited perspective, it's not much.
Yeah, I really think they did a great job. I think they could maybe explore the original, like the characters, like the outer senshi personalities a little bit more. But they do have so much depth. And one thing I will say is that I also love, you were talking about like the illustrations in the game. The sprites are so cute. Like the way that they do their attacks and everything is just the exact way you think they would. It's like a little tiny, flat version of what they do in the show. I think you're really right. Like this game really does a good job at getting the essence of this show. And it's just sad that not many people here might have explored it who love Sailor Moon. But I do wish there was more Darien. Tuxedo Mask is missing, probably, I would say. Like there's not enough of that happening.
Yes, most important character in the entire story, Tuxedo Mask.
We do love him. He's a dork, and yeah, we don't need him, but we do love him. And it would be nice to see him around every now and then, so.
I mean, his work here was obviously done, so he just left.
Exactly. He was like, y'all got this. I need to go take a nap. Whatever. I've done enough. I've thrown enough roses around. Y'all can figure this out.
If you knew somebody who wanted to get into Sailor Moon, would you give them this game as part of a primer course?
I would. It wouldn't be the first thing. I would definitely tell them to watch the original first, of course. But I also I haven't really looked at a lot of like the Sailor Moon fandom and their thoughts on the new series. But I loved it personally. I thought it was a beautiful reanimation. I love the new dub because I just think it's more like open and accepting of the characters as they are, in terms of like the fact that Sailor Moon has a very strong like LGBTQ like representation, and that is so important. And the fact that it does not shy away from that, and the new show is just great. It's so cool. There's a few things that they do shy away from, but it is a kid show, and unfortunately that happens sometimes. And that sucks, but there's a lot that it does right in terms of just retelling the story in a way for like newer generations to watch it. Because I mean, when you watch the older Sailor Moon, it is pretty much like, it's Monster of the Week, just like the new one's Monster of the Week too, but there's just something a little more nuanced with it. So back to your question, I would say yes, but it would be after watching the original Sailor Moon, I think. And actually get to the end of it before playing it, because then you're not like me and not knowing what happened at the end.
As much as I like this game, as much as I can say that this really represents Sailor Moon well, I don't think I could give this to somebody to introduce them to it. Just because you probably should have so much knowledge going into it. I mean, this is definitely something I'm going to have ready to hand to them, but I don't know how early. I don't think it's a good introduction, but it is good after you've already had the introduction.
I agree. Absolutely. I actually think it's probably disastrous to give this to someone without any prior knowledge, just because there's way too many things happening. It would just be like throwing everything in their face, and you really do. To enjoy it, you really got to know all the like little like Easter eggs and secrets, and it's just more fun when you already know the characters, because they really do throw you into it as if you've already known all this, right? They don't lay the story out for you. So you got to have that prior knowledge.
So let's say I just really, really want to play this game, but I don't feel like watching Sailor Moon. I don't want to do all that, but I still want to know what's going on. Which 2 or 3 Muppets that are not usually paired together are you going to have explaining to me what I need to know before I play this game?
Oh my gosh. And I already jokingly, but not jokingly, told you that my first thought thinking about Muppets was, is it Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street? And I think it's just because I get a lot of like Usagi energy from him. He's just like, he's great and friendly, but he's also goofy and lazy, and he likes to eat a lot of stuff, junk. And that is Usagi to a T. And I feel like he would just do a great job in going over the madness that is Sailor Moon, because it's just like, if you're just listening to the story of somebody like explaining this to you, you've got to have someone that's off the rails, but also is endearing and adorable. And I think that's probably going to be him. If I had to pick another, like a partner character, probably Fozzie Bear. I think he also gives similar energy in that way. And I think I could just see him like sitting down and like, I don't know, probably cramming all of Sailor Moon into an evening and just having a great old time. So that's who I would pick.
Now I just want to see Fozzie hang out with Oscar, because Oscar would get so annoyed.
I know. And exactly, that's what happens when Sailor Moon, right? Like, especially Marge. She gets so mad at her. Like, they have fights all the time. So it's like, you'd be watching them talk about it, but then they would also be just playing out the entire story, because it's all about these girls getting together, and one of them is really cute and sweet and great and saves the world, but she's also really annoying. But they all still love her.
Well, Cass, it has been great talking to you about all this. If people want to hear more from you, where else can they find you around the internet?
Sure, yeah. So as you mentioned at the top, I do have a podcast in space, but it is Distant Echoes, a Star Wars podcast. Me and my partner Tommy travel through the galaxy, watching each episode of every Star Wars TV series in whatever order we please. And you can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky. We're at Distant Echoes SW. And you can find me personally on Instagram and Blue Sky at Gonk Binary.
And as always, we'll have links to all that stuff down in the show notes, because clicking links is so much easier than trying to remember how to spell things, especially if you're me, who misspelled echoes.
That's okay. We forgive you. You found us eventually.
Well, I mean, Tommy told me, so that's the only reason I was able to fix it, because I do podcasting and not writing for a reason.
That's okay. We all have our strengths. We all have our superpowers, Chris.
Ooh, that's a good one. As for me, the best place to find me is over on playcomics.com, where there's links to all the social media things, which is still Blue Sky and Threads, or Threads and Blue Sky. Although the weekend that this comes out, who knows how often I'll be around, because I'm going to be at JordanCon in Atlanta. And so, I mean, I'll try to sneak stuff in, because there will be time between panels and stuff, and I tend to go to panels that are in the same room just because that's how they lay things out. But, you know, we'll see what happens. If you want to be on the show, then check out the list of things that I have linked to down in the show notes. Those are the things I'm really trying to find a guest for. So if you see something on there that you think you'd be good for, or you think a friend would be good for, then, you know, get in contact with me and we'll see what we can do. Or if you think there's somebody that I should go after and ask them to be on the show, then, you know, tell me and I'll see what we can do to pull off getting them on the show. Or if you can't commit to a whole episode, send in your thoughts on the game. Just like over on one of the many Discord servers I'm in, CountZeroOr came by and said, you know, why did we never get this one? Probably a combination of a couple factors. For much of the 16-bit console generation and the 8-bit console generation before that, there was still a very considerable anti-Japan bias in terms of marketing of console games, based on the idea that American audiences wouldn't buy anything actively presented as being Japanese. So anime presentations were out. This is part of the reason why the first Ranma 1/2 fighting game was changed into Street Combat. But the Golgo 13 games were viewed as something of an outlier. While some other titles later in the 90s would take chances on presenting themselves as being more anime, like Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle, there were also titles for properties generally marketed to guys. As also around this time, video game marketing was increasingly getting more gendered, something that would continue throughout the 90s and into the 2000s and beyond. As a property targeted for girls, Sailor Moon didn't fit in the gender essentialist marketing plans of the video game industry. And also, it's an RPG that has a ton of text to localize and translate, versus the Sailor Moon beat 'em ups and stuff. That certainly didn't help this one coming out over here. If you want to get thoughts like that into the show, then our next episode is going to be looking at Uncanny X-Men. Yes, I've done that one already, but I did it by myself, and this time I have friends there. And I mean friends in the best sense of the word and the most accurate sense of the word. You will understand when you see who it is. If you want to help support the show, then you can be like Oh No Lit Class and Dan McMahon and give the show money, because unfortunately it does cost money to run a podcast. Or just tell your friends, your family, your enemies, the bus driver who drives you to work every day. You know, they deserve something nice too. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. but tell them at a time when they're not driving, because that is just rude and probably dangerous. Don't forget that Play Comics is a part of the GonnaGeek.com network, home to such wonderful shows as Capes on the Couch. I don't even know what to say anymore. No, Capes on the Couch is good. They just need to put out a Spider-Gwen episode, because I'm selfish and I want Spider-Gwen, and I'm too cheap to send them a giant check to make it happen. If you want to hear Carrington Martin and I look at the media properties that we watched as little kids, and all those lessons we learned while we were watching those that we're suddenly not supposed to be applying to everyday life anymore, then it sounds like you want to check out Sugar Spite and Everything is Fine. We need to get that going. Again, life happens. What are you going to do? That's why it's officially on a sporadic release schedule. If you like the music that I'm rudely talking on top of right now, head on over to backytrack.gg and check out all the great music over there, and maybe grab something for your own project. But most of all, just grab a game, grab a stack of comics, and go find yourself a new favorite character.